The Howard home, nestled in the quiet, friendly town of Morgan County, Georgia, was a beacon of warmth and laughter. Inside, the air buzzed with the joyful chaos of Halloween preparations. DJ Howard, a skilled carpenter with a booming laugh and a love for baseball, was meticulously carving a pumpkin, its jagged grin mirroring his own. His hands, calloused from years of working with wood, moved with surprising delicacy. He was a man who built things, not just houses, but also a strong, loving family. Crystal Howard, a preschool teacher with a gentle demeanor and a passion for music, was humming a cheerful tune as she carefully arranged candy in a large, spiderweb-covered bowl. Her eyes, the color of warm honey, sparkled with a quiet joy. She had a knack for making even the simplest things feel special, a gift she shared generously with her students and, most importantly, her children. 13-year-old Justin, the eldest, was a quiet observer, a boy with a thoughtful nature and a love for science fiction. He sat on the floor, surrounded by books about distant galaxies, occasionally glancing up to watch his family with a subtle smile. He was the responsible one, the anchor in their playful storm. 10-year-old Amaya, a whirlwind of energy and creativity, was flitting around the room, her fairy wings shimmering in the lamplight. She was a budding artist, her imagination as vibrant as the color she used in her drawings. She dreamed of one day filling galleries with her art. 8-year-old Damian, a miniature superhero in a bright red cape, was striking dramatic poses, pretending to fight imaginary villains. He was all boisterous energy and playful mischief, constantly teasing his younger sister, Trayvon. 6-year-old Trayvon, the baby of the family, clung to a well-loved teddy bear, his wide, innocent eyes taking in the festive scene. He was a cuddler, a sweet soul who loved being held and comforted. The house itself was a testament to their love. Handmade Halloween decorations adorned every corner. Paper bats, ghostly figures, and strings of orange and black lights. The scent of pumpkin spice filled the air, mingling with the comforting aroma of Crystal's freshly baked cookies. It was a picture of perfect family harmony, a haven of love and laughter. This was their sanctuary, built on shared moments and unwavering affection. The glow from the carved pumpkins seemed to reflect the warmth radiating from within the Howard family itself. The afternoon sun began to dip below the horizon, casting long shadows across the living room floor. "All right, everyone, time to get into your costumes," Crystal announced, her voice filled with excitement. The children scrambled to their rooms, their anticipation palpable. DJ helped Trayvon into his adorable bear costume, carefully adjusting the furry ears. Crystal zipped up Amaya's fairy dress, adding a sprinkle of glitter to her wings. Justin, with a hint of teenage reluctance, donned his astronaut suit, a gift from his father from a previous year's space camp. Damian, already in full superhero mode, leaped around the room, practicing his flying skills. The dinner table was a vibrant scene. Crystal had prepared their favorite meal, spaghetti and meatballs, with garlic bread and a side of green beans, which Damian and Trayvon tried to avoid. Laughter filled the air as they shared stories about their day, their excitement for the evening bubbling over. DJ told a silly joke, making everyone, even Justin, crack a genuine smile. Crystal recounted a funny anecdote from her preschool class, her eyes twinkling with amusement. As they finished their meal, Crystal noticed a slight tear in Trayvon's bear costume, near the seam. "Oh dear," she said, examining it closely. "I'll need to fix that before we go trick-or-treating. I can run to the store and grab some thread." "Honey," DJ offered. "It'll be quicker than you sewing it." "Are you sure?" Crystal asked. "It's getting late." "It's just down the street," DJ reassured her. "I'll take the truck. Be back before you know it." He gave each of the children a quick hug and a kiss on the forehead. "Be good for your mom," he said, his voice full of love. "And don't eat all the candy before we get back." Crystal joined him at the door. "We'll be quick," she said to the children. "Just finish watching your Halloween movie." Justin, feeling a sudden, inexplicable wave of unease, watched them go. He couldn't shake the feeling that something was off, but he dismissed it as pre-Halloween jitters. He settled back on the couch, trying to focus on the animated antics on the television screen, but his mind kept drifting back to his parents. The clock ticked by, and the laughter of his siblings seemed to fade into the background as his anxiety grew. He reached for a book, trying to distract himself, but the words blurred before his eyes. He couldn't shake the feeling that this Halloween night was different, that something was about to change. As a gust of wind rattled the windows, a single candle on the mantel flickered and died, plunging a corner of the room into shadow. A shiver ran down his spine. It wasn't just the wind. The movie ended, and the children, still buzzing with excitement, began to get restless. "When are Mommy and Daddy coming back?" Trayvon asked, clutching his teddy bear. "Soon, sweetie," Justin said, trying to sound reassuring, even though his own heart was pounding with a growing sense of dread. "They just had to get something for your costume." Amaya, ever the optimist, suggested they practice their trick-or-treat routine. Damian, eager for any excuse to run around, readily agreed. Justin watched them, a forced smile on his face, his internal alarm bells ringing louder with each passing minute. He tried calling his parents' cell phones, but both went straight to voicemail. He paced the living room, his mind racing. He considered calling a neighbor, but he didn't want to alarm anyone unnecessarily. He told himself that they were probably just stuck in a long line at the store, that everything was fine. But deep down, he knew something was terribly wrong. The cheerful Halloween decorations now seemed to mock him, their bright colors and silly faces a stark contrast to the growing darkness in his heart. The house, once filled with warmth and laughter, now felt empty and cold. The missing piece wasn't just the thread for Trayvon's costume. It was the presence of his parents, the heart and soul of their family. And he had a terrifying feeling that they might never come back. Trooper Nathan Bradley was enjoying a relatively quiet Halloween night shift. The Morgan County Sheriff's Department was usually calm, and tonight was no exception. He and his fellow officers were sharing jokes and trading candy, the atmosphere light and festive. Nathan, at 25, was still relatively new to the force, but he loved his job. He felt a strong sense of purpose, a desire to protect and serve his community. He had a younger sister, Lily, who was just a few years older than Trayvon. Thinking of her dressed up in her princess costume, waiting for him to come home and take her trick-or-treating brought a smile to his face. He'd promised her he'd be off early. His thoughts were interrupted by the shrill ring of the dispatch phone. He answered, his voice professional and calm. "Trooper Bradley." The voice on the other end was frantic, strained with panic. "There's been an accident. A bad one. On Highway 16, near Old Mill Road." Nathan's light-hearted mood vanished instantly. He grabbed a notepad and pen, his senses on high alert. "Can you give me any details? How many vehicles? Any injuries?" Two cars. I think they're dead." The caller stammered, their voice choked with sobs. There's so much blood." Nathan's heart sank. He quickly gathered the necessary information, his mind racing. He notified his supervisor and requested backup. He knew that every second counted. As he hung up the phone, a cold dread washed over him. He had a feeling this wasn't going to be just another routine traffic accident. This was going to be bad. He thought of Lily again, and a sudden, intense wave of protectiveness surged through him. He had to get to the scene, and he had to do his job. The scene that greeted Nathan and his partner, Sarah, a seasoned officer with a calm demeanor, was horrific. Two cars, mangled beyond recognition, were locked in a twisted embrace of steel and glass. Debris was scattered across the highway, shimmering under the flashing blue and red lights of their patrol cars. The air was thick with the acrid smell of gasoline and burnt rubber. Nathan and Sarah quickly assessed the situation, their training kicking in. They confirmed what the caller had reported. The drivers of both vehicles were deceased. One car, a small sedan, was completely crushed. The other, a pickup truck, was flipped on its side, its front end demolished. As they worked to secure the scene, Nathan began to gather information about the victims. He carefully searched the wreckage of the pickup truck, finding a wallet in the glove compartment. He opened it, his hands trembling slightly. The driver's license identified the man as DJ Howard. He was listed to have an address just down the street. Nathan then moved to the sedan. Inside, amidst the shattered glass and twisted metal, he found a purse. He gently opened it, pulling out a wallet. The driver's license identified the woman as Crystal Howard. The address was the same listed on DJ's license. His heart clenched. He pulled out a small, slightly crumpled photograph that had been tucked into a side pocket. It was a picture of the Howards, smiling brightly, surrounded by 4 young children, all dressed in Halloween costumes. Nathan stared at the photograph, his breath catching in his throat. He recognized the house in the background. It was the house he had driven past just a few minutes earlier, the one with the glowing pumpkins and the cheerful Halloween decorations. The house full of children, waiting for their parents to come home. A wave of nausea washed over him. He looked at Sarah, his face pale. "They have kids, Sarah," he said, his voice barely a whisper. 4 kids, waiting for them at home. Sarah met his gaze, her expression grim. "We need to go," she said softly. The internal debate raged within Nathan. Protocol dictated that he inform the next of kin immediately. But looking at that photograph, at those smiling faces, he knew he couldn't do it. Not tonight. Not on Halloween. He couldn't shatter their world. Not like this. He had to find another way. He had to protect them, even if it was just for a few more hours. The drive to the Howard residence was agonizingly short. The cheerful Halloween decorations that had seemed so festive just an hour ago now felt like a cruel mockery. The glowing pumpkins, the ghostly figures, the strings of orange and black lights. All of it seemed to amplify the tragedy that was about to unfold. Nathan parked the patrol car a short distance from the house, his heart pounding in his chest. He could hear the faint sounds of laughter and music coming from inside. He took a deep breath, trying to compose himself. Sarah placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "We'll do this together," she said. They walked slowly towards the front door, their footsteps crunching on the gravel driveway. Nathan raised his hand to knock, but hesitated. He looked at Sarah, his eyes filled with doubt and fear. "I don't know if I can do this," he whispered. "You have to," Sarah said firmly. "For them." He took another deep breath and knocked. The sounds of laughter inside abruptly stopped. A few seconds later, the door creaked open. Standing before them were 4 children, their faces beaming with excitement. Justin, dressed as an astronaut, greeted them with a polite trick or treat. Amaya, a vision in pink and glitter, twirled around, showing off her fairy wings. "Look at my costume," she exclaimed. Damian, a pint-sized superhero, struck a heroic pose. "I'm here to save the day," he declared. Trayvon, clutching his teddy bear, peeked out from behind Justin's legs, his eyes wide with wonder. He offered a shy smile. Nathan's heart shattered into a million pieces. He looked at those innocent faces, those bright, hopeful eyes, and he knew he couldn't tell them the truth. Not now. Not like this. He forced a weak smile. "Hi," he said, his voice trembling slightly. "I'm Trooper Bradley. We're just here to check on things. Make sure everyone's having a safe Halloween." Justin, ever observant, noticed the slight tremor in Nathan's voice, the forced smile. He sensed that something wasn't right, but he didn't say anything. He simply nodded, his eyes searching Nathan's face. The other children, oblivious to the undercurrent of tension, continued to chatter excitedly about their costumes and their plans for the evening. Nathan's carefully constructed lie hung in the air, a fragile shield against the devastating truth. He knew he couldn't keep it up forever, but for now, it was all he had. He had to buy them time. He had to protect their Halloween, even if it was just for a few more precious hours. Back at the patrol car, Nathan and Sarah frantically contacted dispatch. "We need to locate the next of kin for the Howard children," Nathan said, his voice urgent. 4 children, ages 6 to 13. The parents, DJ and Crystal Howard, were involved in a fatal traffic accident. Sarah, ever the pragmatist, added, "We're at the residence. The children are unaware of the situation. We need to find a relative who can take custody of them immediately." The dispatcher, after a moment of stunned silence, confirmed that they would begin the search. The agonizing wait began. Nathan and Sarah returned to the house, their minds racing. They had to keep the children distracted, keep them from suspecting the truth, until a relative could be found. After what felt like an eternity, dispatch contacted them with information. We've located the children's maternal grandmother, Stephanie Oliver. She lives in Florida, approximately a 7-hour drive away. 7 hours. Nathan's heart sank. He couldn't bear the thought of telling the children the truth and then leaving them alone for 7 hours, especially on what was supposed to be a joyous occasion. An idea, audacious and unconventional, began to form in his mind. "Sarah," he said, "I can't do it. I can't tell them tonight. We need to give them a Halloween. A real Halloween." Sarah looked at him, surprised. "Nathan, are you sure? That's not protocol." "I know it's not protocol," Nathan said, his voice firm, "but it's the right thing to do. We can't let their last memory of their parents be overshadowed by this tragedy. We can postpone telling them until tomorrow. Let them associate the loss with November 1st, not Halloween." He knew he was bending the rules, maybe even breaking them, but he couldn't shake the feeling that this was the only way to protect these children, to give them a small measure of comfort in the face of unimaginable grief. With Sarah's hesitant agreement and a quickly fabricated story for dispatch about contacting a local relative who was on their way, Nathan's plan went into action. He went back inside, putting on the bravest face he could muster. "Hey guys," he said, forcing a cheerful tone. "How about we go get some dinner? My treat. What are your favorite places?" The children's faces lit up. Amaya immediately shouted, "Pizza!" Damian chimed in with, "Burgers!" Trayvon, still shy, whispered, "Chicken nuggets." Justin, still suspicious, remained silent, his eyes fixed on Nathan. They piled into the patrol car, Nathan and Sarah taking turns answering the children's endless questions about police work. They went to a pizza place, a burger joint, and a fast food restaurant with chicken nuggets, letting each child choose their favorite meal. Nathan watched them eat, his heart aching, but he kept his composure, engaging them in conversation, laughing at their jokes, trying to create a semblance of normalcy. After dinner, Nathan had another idea. "You know what?" he said. "We have a special surprise for you back at the station." He drove them to the Morgan County Sheriff's Department, where he had quietly arranged for his colleagues to participate in his impromptu plan. The officers, alerted to the situation, had quickly transformed a small conference room into a makeshift Halloween party. They had strung up some decorations, put out bowls of candy, and even found some costumes for themselves. When the children walked in, their eyes widened in amazement. The officers, dressed as pirates, witches, and superheroes, greeted them with enthusiastic cries of trick or treat. The children, forgetting their earlier anxieties, eagerly joined in the fun. They went from officer to officer, collecting candy and small toys. Nathan watched them, a bittersweet smile on his face. He knew this was a temporary illusion, a fragile bubble of happiness that would inevitably burst, but for now, it was enough. Justin, however, remained detached. He participated in the activities, but his eyes constantly sought out Nathan, his gaze filled with unspoken questions. He knew something was wrong, terribly wrong, but he couldn't bring himself to ask. He saw the sadness in Trooper Bradley's eyes, the forced cheerfulness, and he understood, on some level, that this was all a carefully constructed facade. But he also saw the kindness, the compassion, and he trusted, instinctively, that this man was trying to protect them. He decided, for the sake of his younger siblings, to play along. He would wait. He would be strong. He would be the astronaut, navigating the unknown, until he could figure out what was really going on. As the night wore on, the younger children began to tire. Trayvon fell asleep in Nathan's arms, his teddy bear clutched tightly in his hand. Amaya and Damian, their energy finally depleted, snuggled up on a couch in the conference room, watching a Halloween movie that Sarah had put on. Justin remained awake, sitting quietly beside Nathan. The silence between them was heavy, filled with unspoken words. Finally, Justin broke the silence. "Trooper Bradley," he said softly, "are my parents okay?" Nathan hesitated. He had been dreading this question, but he knew he couldn't lie to Justin forever. He looked at the boy, his eyes filled with compassion. "Justin," he said, his voice gentle, I need to be honest with you. Something happened tonight. Something bad." Justin nodded, his eyes fixed on Nathan's. He had known, deep down, that this was coming. He braced himself. "Your parents—" Nathan paused, struggling to find the right words. "They were in an accident. A car accident." Justin's breath hitched. He waited, his heart pounding in his chest. "I didn't make it, Justin," Nathan said softly, his voice choked with emotion. "I'm so sorry." Justin didn't cry. He simply stared at Nathan, his face pale, his eyes wide with shock and disbelief. He didn't scream, he didn't shout, he didn't break down. He simply absorbed the words, the devastating truth, with a quiet stoicism that belied his 13 years. "Where are they?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. They're at the hospital," Nathan said. "Your grandmother is coming. She'll be here in the morning." Justin nodded again. He didn't ask any more questions. He simply sat there, in the dimly lit room, the sounds of the Halloween movie a distant murmur, the weight of the world on his young shoulders. He looked at his sleeping siblings, their faces peaceful and innocent, and he knew he had to be strong for them. He had to protect them, just as Trooper Bradley was trying to protect him. Nathan, seeing the pain in Justin's eyes, felt a surge of empathy. He reached out and placed a hand on the boy's shoulder. "I know this is hard, Justin," he said, "but you're not alone. We're here for you. We'll help you get through this." He told Justin a bit about his own past, a much smaller tragedy, but one where he understood the loss of not having someone there. Justin listened, his gaze unwavering. He didn't say much, but he appreciated Nathan's honesty, his kindness. He knew that this night, this unexpected Halloween, was a gift, a precious moment of grace before the storm of grief descended upon them. And he was grateful, even in his sorrow, for the man who had given it to them. Stephanie Oliver drove through the night, fueled by adrenaline and a desperate hope that somehow, someway, the news she had received was wrong. The phone call had been a blur, a jumble of words that she couldn't quite comprehend. Accident, fatal, children. Morgan County. She gripped the steering wheel, her knuckles white, her eyes fixed on the road ahead. She had to get to her grandchildren. She had to be there for them. She had to be strong, even though her own heart was breaking. She replayed conversations with her daughter and son-in-law. She thought of each of her grandchildren and their last time together. When she finally arrived at the Morgan County Sheriff's Department, the first rays of dawn were painting the sky a pale, mournful gray. She was exhausted, her eyes red and swollen from crying. But she forced herself to stand tall, to be the rock that her grandchildren needed. Nathan met her at the door, his face etched with exhaustion and sorrow. He led her inside, to the conference room where the children were still sleeping. Stephanie saw them, her 4 precious grandchildren, huddled together on the couches, their faces peaceful and innocent. Her heart ached with a love so profound, so fierce, that it threatened to overwhelm her. She knelt beside them, gently stroking their hair, tears streaming down her face. Nathan explained the situation to Stephanie, his voice filled with respect and compassion. He told her about his decision to postpone telling the children the truth, about the unexpected Halloween he had created for them. Stephanie listened, her heart filled with gratitude. She understood, instinctively, why Nathan had done it. He had seen the children, not as statistics, not as victims, but as human beings deserving of kindness and compassion. "Thank you," she said, her voice choked with emotion. "Thank you for protecting them, for giving them one last night of happiness." She gathered her courage, and, with Nathan by her side, she woke the children, one by one. She held them close, whispering words of love and comfort as she gently broke the news. The illusion of Halloween was over. The reality of their loss, raw and devastating, descended upon them. The conference room, which just hours before had been filled with laughter and the joyful chaos of a makeshift Halloween party, was now filled with the quiet sobs of heartbroken children. Stephanie held Trayvon, the youngest, in her lap, rocking him gently as he cried for his mommy. Damian, his superhero bravado gone, clung to his grandmother's leg, his face buried in her skirt. Amaya, her fairy wings now drooping, wept silently, tears streaming down her cheeks. Justin, his face pale and drawn, stood apart from the others. He didn't cry. He simply stared out the window, his eyes fixed on the rising sun, his mind struggling to comprehend the enormity of his loss. He felt numb, disconnected, as if he were watching a movie, a terrible, heartbreaking movie that he couldn't turn off. Stephanie, her own grief overwhelming, tried to comfort her grandchildren, her voice a soft murmur of love and reassurance. She told them that their parents loved them very much, that they would always be with them in their hearts, that they would never be forgotten. Nathan stood by, his heart aching for the children. He felt a profound sense of helplessness, a deep sorrow that went beyond his professional duty. He had done what he could to protect them, to soften the blow, but he knew that the pain they were feeling was immeasurable, a wound that would take a long time to heal. He offered to assist with anything, gave his number, contact info. As the initial shock began to subside, the reality of the situation set in. Arrangements had to be made. Funeral plans, legal matters, the daunting task of raising 4 orphan children. All of it fell upon Stephanie's shoulders. The small community rallied, offering support. In the days and weeks that followed, Nathan found himself drawn to the Howard family. He couldn't explain it, but he felt a deep connection to them, a sense of responsibility that went beyond his badge. He started calling Stephanie regularly, checking in on the children, offering to help in any way he could. He visited them often, bringing small gifts, playing games with the younger children, talking to Justin about school, about life, about anything that seemed to help. He became a constant presence in their lives, a source of comfort and stability in a world that had been turned upside down. Justin, initially reserved and withdrawn, began to open up to Nathan. He saw in the young trooper a genuine kindness, a compassion that went beyond his professional duty. He started to see Nathan not just as a police officer, but as a friend, a mentor, an older brother figure. He began to talk to him. He began to heal. Nathan, in turn, found himself deeply affected by his relationship with the Howard family. He had always been dedicated to his job, but this experience had changed him. He had seen the fragility of life, the importance of human connection, the power of compassion. He had learned that sometimes the most important thing you can do is simply be there for someone, to offer a helping hand, a listening ear, a shoulder to cry on. The online fundraising campaign that Nathan had started for the family went viral. People from all over the country, touched by the story of the children and the compassionate trooper, donated generously. The outpouring of support was overwhelming, a testament to the power of human kindness. The funds raised would help secure the children's future, easing the financial burden on Stephanie. News outlets picked up the story. The time came for the Howard children to leave Morgan County. Stephanie, after much deliberation, decided to move them to Florida to be closer to her and the rest of their family. It was a difficult decision, leaving behind their home, their friends, their memories, but it was the best thing for the children, a chance for a fresh start and new beginning. The day they left, Nathan came to say goodbye. The children gathered around him, their faces filled with a mixture of sadness and gratitude. They hugged him tightly, their small arms wrapped around his waist, his legs. Trayvon, clutching his teddy bear, whispered, "I'll miss you, Trooper Bradley." Amaya, her eyes still red from crying, gave him a drawing she had made, a picture of him as a superhero with a big, bright smile. Damian, his usual bravado replaced by a quiet solemnity, simply said, "Thank you." Justin, standing a little apart, looked at Nathan, his eyes filled with a deep understanding. "You'll come visit, right?" he asked. Nathan smiled, his heart filled with emotion. "Of course," he said. "I promise." He gave each of the children a final hug, a promise of continued connection, a bond that had been forged in the crucible of tragedy. Several years later, Nathan Bradley, now a sergeant, received an invitation to a wedding. It was from Justin Howard. He was getting married. The invitation included a handwritten note. "You were there for us when we needed you most. We want you to be there for this. Your family. Nathan attended the wedding, his heart filled with joy and pride. He saw the Howard children, now young adults, thriving, happy, their lives rebuilt on a foundation of love and resilience. He saw the strength in their eyes, the determination to honor their parents' memory by living their lives to the fullest. Justin, in his wedding speech, acknowledged Nathan, his voice filled with emotion. "There's a man here today who changed our lives," he said. "He showed us that even in the darkest of times, there is still light, there is still hope, there is still kindness. He taught us the true meaning of compassion. He's more than just a friend, he's family." Thank you, Nathan. As Nathan looked at the Howard family, at the smiling faces, the joyful tears, he realized that he had done more than just his job that Halloween night. He had touched their lives in a profound way, and they had touched his. He had learned that sometimes the greatest acts of heroism are not the ones that make headlines, but the ones that are done quietly, with compassion and love, in the service of others. The memory of that Halloween night, once a source of profound sadness, was now also a reminder of the enduring power of the human spirit, the resilience of children, and the transformative power of kindness. He had found a deeper meaning in his work, a renewed sense of purpose, and a family that he would cherish forever. He realized that he hadn't just delayed their grief. He had helped them find a way to carry it together. He had, in his own way, helped them to keep the glow of their family alive, even in the face of unimaginable loss.